Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here to talk about solo queue. TSM double lift is old news, so we jump on the next bandwagon topic because we like views. Who doesn't? Yay! Nevertheless, I want to start off with a lot of the information that I'm sharing is community sentiment, things that I have come across. It is not pointing to, you know, physical, statistical evidence. This is a lot of it is anecdotal, things that I've come across, and my opinion, right? So if there are statistics out there that point to, oh, the player base is happier than ever, then okay, show me that, and I'll take a look, and maybe I'll change my opinion. Second disclaimer is, I am, saying solo queue because this is what I'm playing. I'm playing solo queue, and I understand that the majority of the player base is actually playing normal games, and these things might apply to you, but I'm not so certain. But feel included when I'm saying solo queue. It's just natural for me to say solo queue. The game as a whole, I just call it solo queue. That's just what I do. So I apologize if you don't feel included, but this might involve everyone. Nevertheless, solo queue has been the hot topic. A lot of videos have come out, Voy Boy and a bunch of other stuff. And, I wanted to start off with talking about, this romanticization of the past. Sure, it's subjective if you think past seasons are better or not, for sure. I think High Ladder was definitely better in the past because it actually, the credibility of the ladder has deteriorated over time for various reasons that we're going to get into. But I think there's been a lot of significant improvements that I wanted to still highlight because I didn't want to make it just like a hate riot video. I want to call it as I see it. I think role selection was a massive improvement that we didn't have in the past. I think high elo solo queue was okay with this because usually, like if I was playing high elo and people were like, okay, YamatoCannon, let him play top lane or let him play the carry or whatever role I played at the time. That was fine. That experience was fine because it was the amount of players within higher ranks was very limited. Sometimes you had queue for many, many hours. But it was worth it, because you knew you would have high quality games. And nevertheless, role selection is a very, very positive change, especially for ranks lower than the highest rank. In the past, people were calling out roles like I am mid, and then you had this guy in your team called mid or troll, and then you were locked in mid because you have higher pick priority, and it turned into a disaster. So I think that's a positive change that we should highlight when we're talking about past seasons. Sure, it isn't perfect. Sometimes you get auto-filled, but in the past, imagine you had 5 players that were auto-filled and everything was kind of just a coin flip, right? So that was definitely a lot worse. Next thing in line that in terms of improvements is I like the meta. I think the meta and the way Riot is handling patches is quite positive. They're trying to lower win ratios, increase win ratios by 2%, 1%. They are being very, very precise with how they address these things. But let me just drink a little bit of water. They're no longer trying to shoehorn champions into the meta. They're not trying to like, oh, let's buff this champion to space so only Elon Musk can see it, and they will just take over the whole game just for like this doesn't happen anymore. Or like, oh, this champion is problematic, we don't know how to nerf it, just delete her off the planet. That used to happen a lot as well. And I'm happy we've moved away from that, and the meta is better than ever, I think, for solo queue. Another thing that was added to the game was the ban system. In the past, only first pick banned 3 champions, and now everyone had each their own ban. We have 5 bans because there's more champions. So there's also positive improvements, and I'm sure there are more. Another thing, probably the biggest one, is I don't see any cheaters. Meaning not the ones that commit adultery. I mean scripters, drop hackers, map hackers even. So for those who don't know, drop hackers are the ones that can just drop a game, meaning disconnect everyone from the game, just delete the game completely by disconnecting everyone. That happened a lot. Season 1, 2, 3, it happened super, super much. Scripters were very, very common. Map hackers were also very, very common. DDoS also happened, but I think that was mostly because of Skype and TeamSpeak, and everyone's using Discord, but maybe people can DDoS for that too. I don't know. I'm not some tech geek, so I can't tell you. Maybe I'm completely wrong there. If someone can, correct me, go ahead. But IP addresses were very, very available. That was also a thing that plagued the game, DDoSers. Nevertheless, cheaters seem to be gone, but sure, maybe the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was to convince everyone they don't exist. But then again, I just don't see them. I don't see anyone complaining about them. I haven't heard about them in a long time, and I think that's very, very good. That's very positive. I'm very happy about that because that was very, very problematic. That brings me to the next point, right? About the whole streaming business, the streamers, and how the the streamer experience matters for all of us. So streamers advertise the game. Let's make that clear. Every game that they play, this is what people perceive. That's their expectation for what their experience is going to be like. So what is allowed, what is said, what is done is something that they inherently, subconsciously are going to try to mimic and also expect in their games. Sure, there is difference in terms of level, but the behavior of it is very important. So the first thing that comes to mind, Voidboy's biggest point, was there are people that are ruining games. They're trying to intentionally snipe them. They're ruining games, and this is a big problem. I think Voidboy has a very, very good point here. They are not getting punished enough. Players are not getting punished enough, and I think the solution to it is to actually monitor high-level games. People are asking about tribunal and being more strict on bans, but I think you need to assign people to high-level games and monitor them closely. Sure, it might come across as biased towards streamers or biased towards high elo players, but it is going to trickle down. All behavior in the advertised space, meaning streamer games, is going to trickle down to all the other games too. You need to keep in mind that people mimic the behavior of the people that they idolize. They see what other people can get away with, and then they will do it too. It is the same thing streamers themselves when they behave toxic or whatever you want to call it. This is something that they are going to also mimic. But I want to focus first on the issue with people intentionally ruining games and not getting banned. I think if you monitor the high elo games more closely, you give the high elo games a bit more bias, then this is going to trickle down into lower games too. There are too many games that are being played, so it's very difficult to monitor all of them, but at least in the space that the game is advertised in, I think this is a good first step. And then maybe you can move towards automation and increase, the level of finding the bans in other games. I'm sure this is a very, very difficult problem. I think this is a good first step, addressing the high elo games first, because I do believe that everything trickles down. Another thing that was brought up was the streamers themselves, right? There are some streamers that are considered toxic, and this notoriety is something that helps in terms of achieving fame. This is something that has given a lot of people views, and this is what people, are drawn to. People like to reference, Tyler One, his story about how he rose to fame was through his altercation with Freak and getting permabanned from the game, right? This was his rise to fame. People brought Voidboy as an example in that video with the Gandhi thing, which was crazy to me because Voidboy is one of the better examples of a very, very positive individual that spreads, good ideals, so to speak, in the game. But good, bad, toxic, this is all subjective, right? So it's very, very hard to define it. And Riot has tried to define it, and that was a very, very bad path to go down, because you all remember the story of Riot Light and how defining toxicity is something that is very, very bad. And there is, kind of a gray area where, it's very, very difficult to define and how to handle. But I think streamers themselves also need to understand that they have a lot of power. But right now, I also understand that they are in a position where there's very little incentive to behave otherwise. I've run into players so many times, and I've seen players that just act the same way that streamers act. You can have like this Jax player in top, he's Hardstock Diamond 4, but he's talking in a way where he's like, oh, my team is griefing me. These guys are so cringe. What the fuck, They are just mimicking the behaviors of streamers, and a lot of streamers tend to be quite negative. And it's not necessarily that they write in game, but even what they say matters. If they say it, it also matters. Like if I'm streaming, I can't say that I'm not doing it either. Sometimes I'm playing and I'm saying, oh, these guys are actually into me. It's something. Sometimes I say it too. I'm not gonna say that I'm some saint or something, or that these people are bad or not. But everything that they say as well, not just necessarily right, is also something that is going to affect the player base somewhat, because they are going to mimic these behaviors. People are going to mimic the behaviors of people that they idolize. It's only natural. Even if you watch some show, you like a character, you're going to be drawn towards those characteristics, and you're going to try to, mimic that. It's just natural. It just is. What is that saying? The impersonation is the best form of flattery, or something like that. I can't remember the saying, but you guys know which one I'm referencing to. And the streamers in general have a lot of power, but at the same time, there's no incentive for them to change. This toxicity and how they are is something that is getting them views, and they have no reason to change, because I think Riot is in a position where if they punish them or whatever, that's just gonna backfire, right? Because a lot of it that is happening is not even inside a game; it's outside of the game. So it's something that is, can't really be handled. But at the same time, there is just no incentive for them to change. So that specific topic about how streamers behave, is a very difficult one to tackle. So I don't have, a way to address it, because even though people want to point fingers that this guy is toxic, this guy is toxic, or this guy is toxic, these guys are getting the numbers. People like to point to Night Blue as, oh, this guy is the poison of the league. But the man has almost 3 million subscribers on YouTube. It's working what he's doing. And this is, in the end, what these streamer guys are doing. They are approaching it as a business, and they're doing what is giving them the numbers. And this type of behavior is giving them numbers, so there's no incentive for them to change. And I don't know where that incentive is going to come from, because if it comes from Riot's side, I think it's a very bad path to go down, because Riot doesn't have the best track record of defining what is good behavior or bad behavior, because in the end, it's all subjective. But I think still addressing inters and griefers and people that intentionally ruin games, by the true definition of the word. We can argue semantics. We know that, if someone does something bad, it's called inting too, and that's the evolution of the word. That's fine too. But I mean the true first initial meaning of it, right? Another thing that I wanted to bring up, was some people are just addicted to League of Legends. Addicted to League of Legends in the sense that they're just playing for the sake of playing. They know nothing else. And we've seen many streamers go down a bad path of showing that the game is getting to them. They are not enjoying the game any longer, and they're just playing to play. And I know a lot of players that aren't even streamers that do this too. They're addicted to the game. They're playing without purpose. It's no longer fun. They're just stuck playing it because they know nothing else. And there's a lot of things that are addicting in League. There's a lot of dopamine releases. Like every time you kill a minion, there's like a gold is showing up. And now they added that to support as well, where if you hit someone, you get gold. It's a dopamine release. You get a double kill. Dragon is killed. So much noise and so many lights that are, keeping you very addicted to the game. And I think this is very common, especially now. The game has existed for 10 years. I know that there are people that are watching this video that can relate to that. And I think this can happen with streamers too. I think some streamers keep playing the game when they don't enjoy the game. And I think this is where a lot of frustration comes from too. And I think this is, everything is a part of a vicious cycle. It's a part of a vicious cycle, and everything affects each other, and everything becomes more and more negative as we speak. I think COVID-19 is also not helping. Right? Everyone's staying at home, everyone's a bit more frustrated, everyone's playing more games, everyone's online always, and I think that's also making things worse. But I think people that are refusing to take breaks and are playing the game, there's a lot of streamers that just play just because that's where their viewership is at, and they come across as very frustrated. I think this is something that has happened, and I'm sure you can think of streamers that come across as frustrated with the game and they don't want to play the game, but they're just playing it just because they want views and they want to get paid. This happens in every walk of the creator space. There are YouTubers that are making videos about things they are not passionate about, and this is something that bothers them. The same, a good example is, for example, our Dominate is being. You can see is a completely different person in how he's making his content in terms of the LCS and the view. What's it called? The view, co-viewing or co-hosting, the co-streaming. He seems to be genuinely excited about these things, and you can see how different he is in comparison to him playing solo queue. Right? So I think there is a sentiment of that too, the frustration of the game, because it's just a job and an addiction for a lot of people. The next thing that I wanted to move on to was something that Voyboy brought up, is the credibility of the ladder. The credibility of the ladder is, especially in the West. So let's make something clear. In Korea, the ladder is very respected. If you're high ranked in Korea, that means something. It is valuable. It isn't just a number, right? Of course, if your closest friend was rank 1 on the ladder, he would brag about it. It would be cool. I'm not saying it's completely useless, but in comparison to what it used to be, it's quite meaningless, especially in North America. In EOS too, but less so than North America. North America is probably one of the worst ones in terms of credibility you get from the ladder. The thing that I want to point out here is there's been a lot of issues that have plagued the ranking system. I think the promotion system is garbage. I think that we had one season with dynamic queue where you could queue as 5 and solo queue, and that was a disaster. MMR was bugged. Season 9, MMR was bugged. This happened in Korea too. It was awful. There was many seasons that just ruined the credibility of the ladder, and with time it got worse and worse, and the public perception of it is just that it's useless. And a lot of the times when I look at the ladder too, if someone is rank 1 in North America or EOS, I'm kind of like, whatever, And a lot of pro players and coaches share this sentiment. What can you do to restore the value of it? Korea has something beautiful going on, because whenever a team is bootcamping there, players are there, they're excited. The Korean ladder has that value about it, It has that credibility. Even in Season 9, it was quite bad. Season 10 seems all right still. If someone disagrees, you can point that out in the ladder. I'm not going to say that I have a personal experience, because in the end, this is what I hear from pro players, and Korea is still perceived as the best ladder. Also, the super server in China, there is a value in you getting high ranked. Why isn't it the case in North America and EOS? Even North America less so, EOS a bit less. Okay. I think all the things that I mentioned matter. The history and the streamer culture and the culture within solo queue as well. All of these things matter. Players not being banned for being terrible people within the game. All of these things matter. And I think it's in Riot's best interest to restore the value of the ladder. Let's say there was a solo queue competition. Who gets the highest rank? Maybe there is some incentive. Maybe there's some cash money. Maybe you get invited to some big tournament. Maybe you get hosted by Riot and you get like some kind of medal or something. You get something more than just backpacks. They need to do something to restore the credibility of the ladder. Because right now, a lot of the streamers don't give a shit. A lot of the players don't give a shit. And this breeds more and more negativity. There needs to be kind of a stop button. There needs to be a reset button. The value of solo queue needs to be restored. Make solo queue great again. And we're in a position where I think you need to have some kind of monetary incentive. There needs to be some kind of gain beyond only having the honor and the badge of being high ranked, right? There needs to be something more to it. I think it's super, super important. And maybe you make a separate server. Maybe you make a super server. Maybe you make a competition. Maybe you make a tournament, 1v1 tournament, or maybe you make a team tournament where players are randomly put together based off of their solo queue ranking or something like that, where they get seeded into something. I don't know, just make it more than just you're high ranked, Here you go. You get a challenger recall. Wow. Right now, it's not good enough because the value of the ladder is based off of the public perception. It's kind of like the dollar, it's kind of like the dollar. Or right now, the stock market value for NA solo queue and US solo queue is boom, and Korean solo queue is stonks, right? Or Chinese solo queue, I don't know what's going on over there. It's also stonks, I imagine, right? And the way they need to pump it, they need to artificially pump the value back, right? Because the perception, public perception, is currently shit. So I think this is super, super important, and it is in Riot's best interest to restore the value, Because if the streamers are excited about playing solo, they're tryharding, this is going to spread across the world. Everything trickles down because in the end, the people that stream are the ones that advertise the game. I don't know how the daily viewership looks like, but usually when I open Twitch, it's 300,000 that are watching League of Legends or Valorant or whatever. And then on YouTube, there's so much content that people are watching. There's content across the board. And if the content is made from a perspective of wanting to compete and, restoring the faith in the ladder, it's going to all be better. Everything starts at the highest level and it trickles down because a lot of people watch the content. They just do. They just watch the content, and if the content is negative, because of the state of things, they're going to also mimic those behaviors, and it's just going to trickle down. So everything starts from the top. It just does. Another thing that I wanted to address is Smurfs. Smurfs are inescapable, right? We all agree that with that Smurfs are inescapable. My solution to it would be to just make it easier for people to Smurf, in the sense that, let's say now we have a Riot Games account. Allow me to make a Smurf within my own Riot Games account. Give me, some incentive to do it. Maybe make it level faster. Maybe make it skip the leveling process altogether. Maybe give me some XP boosts just to keep it within the same Riot Games account. And with this, you can make MMR from the main account trickle down. Just give it some kind of incentive for me to create my additional account within the Riot Games account. And then I think a lot of the smurfing problems will be solved. A lot of problems happen because people play in lower ranks against Smurfs. I think this is a problem that you want to avoid, right? People play normal games against Smurfs, like someone is just leveling an account, and that's super boring too. I think you can avoid a lot of those issues because in the end, people are making Smurfs to make videos on Rank to Challenger. People are making Smurfs just to have an account, like, oh, this is my Yasuo only account. Look how my stats on op.gg look. People want to brag and want to show off things, and these are one of the few things that actually look good. If you get a high rank in the US and you have 80% win ratio, that's cool still. That's cool, and people love having these things to show off. People love having these things, and that's what Smurfs are for most of the time. Either video content creation or just to show off and to just dab on enemies. And I think the key thing here is if you make Smurfs within your Riot Games account, there are some streamers out there that are tanking the MMR of their accounts by losing 100 games straight and then doing a 100 win streak video, stream and so forth. And there are a lot of things out there that are really, really crazy. And if you have the Smurf within the same account, you can set account-wide restrictions. I don't believe in a ranked ban. I believe in actual bans. I don't think ranked ban makes any sense. Like, why would you send these people that deserve bans into normal games? Like, why? It's like you're agreeing that normal games is like the gulag in Modern Warfare, where you just send people to battle it out to get to ranked games again. I think we shouldn't forget about normal games too. So for me, just make Smurfs a part of the Riot Games account and add something that makes it easier to level. Maybe remove the leveling process altogether. And then I think you can control the environment Smurfs are being made in. You can have the MMR trickle down from the main account, and it will all be better because at least Smurfs will be controlled, right? You just need to make sure that the incentives are big enough for people to, instead of creating new Riot Games accounts, to actually create accounts within the same account. I think we're going to run into similar problems too with Valorant when the beta is is done, people are going to make so many Smurfs, and it's going to be quite a horrible process. And I think this is something that is going to be quite terrible. And I think the key way is to make sure that Riot Games accounts need some kind of extra verification process. I don't know how deep you can go into this or what the implications can be. More than just an email verification, maybe you need to go further, because this is something that works in Korea, right? You have the social security number as your verification, and maybe this is infringing on people's rights, and you have an issue because players are playing in so many different countries, so there are laws in place that protect people from doing so. But making Riot Games accounts tied to individuals would definitely help this problem. But I think, yeah, the bottom line about Smurfs, I just think incentivize making Smurfs on Riot Games account, or just give us that option in the first place, you know, and then you can handle the MMR better and you can control them better, and everyone will be happier, except the guys who want to tank their MMR by losing 200 games in a row playing Disco Nunu, and then of course, you know, just winning 100 games in a row. You guys know who I'm talking about. Another thing that I wanted to point out, and then the last thing, this video is getting very, very long, is the client. The client is a joke for many reasons. Like the last day specifically, I don't know what's going on with the client, but I've dodged way more games than I've ever had unintentionally, because I press accept and then the game just doesn't load in. And that's nuts to me. Another thing is a lot of people hold champion selects hostage, and the fact that I can't report someone in a champion select is a joke. The fact that I can't report someone in-game is also a joke. I can do that in Valorant already. It is nuts to me that I can't report people always, right? I can't report people always. It's always only in the end-game screen, and that's terrible. That's terrible. I think you can make the reporting system a bit more effective, and it was crazy to me that Riot was considering increasing the punishment for dodging games. It's just so crazy to me that you would address the issue like this, because there is a reason as to why people want to dodge games in the first place. People are not doing it to fuck with people. They're doing it to avoid the fuckery. You know, that's all. It is absolutely crazy to address the problem like this. And you know, they were promising a lot of changes with the client, but then when I read this latest post, this post here really boggled my mind, because I was reading this. Let me see that I did this properly. Sorry. So I was reading this post, right? I was reading this post. Client cleanup, progress, setbacks, and discovery. So I thought they were fixing the client, improving the client, but they are just focusing on. We wanted to first focus on lowering bootstrap time to about 15 seconds. Bootstrap time, remember, is a measure of how long it takes for the client to boot up. And I was reading, hoping at some point we would have something else than just the boot time. But it is all about the boot time. This is what Riot has chosen to address publicly in regards to the client issues. And it's an absolute joke. I think also the Riot Please recently was also quite horrible. And it just makes me ask the question, is Riot allocating the resources properly? I don't know what's going on the inside of Riot, but on the outside, when we get information like this in regards to the client, who gives a fuck about the client booting 5 seconds faster? I couldn't give 10 fucks about it. I don't know anyone who gives a fuck about it. I wouldn't mind waiting 5 extra seconds. It's okay. I don't know why we're getting a big post about this. I don't know why effort is being put into Eternals. I don't know why a lot of effort is being put into other things, other aspects that seem so useless. Sure, just because they advertised this and made a post about this doesn't mean they're not working on the other things, but we don't know. We don't know what's going on. We don't know what's getting improved. I think the Riot Please was kind of a, you know, like it didn't really tell us anything, the last Riot Pleases that we saw. And I understand now during COVID it's difficult because everyone's working from home and everything is hard to figure out. I get it. But at the same time, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what kind of improvements are being done. I don't know anything. Sure, there was a post too in regards to they're trying to improve matchmaking and so forth. But before I see something concrete, because we're also saying that they're going to improve the client, I'm not going to believe it. I'm just not going to believe it. So it's up to us to make enough noise to make a change happen. This honestly really boggled my mind when I read this, because like sure it's cool, but this should be like the last thing on the priority list, I feel. So it's definitely made my blood boil. Nevertheless, I've been talking now for 30 minutes. I brought up a lot of topics. Maybe I missed something. Maybe you disagree with something. I would love to create a discussion, because in the end, the most important thing is for us to talk about it. We have to talk about it. We have to address things publicly. And to summarize, I think streamers have a lot of power. I think Riot can be much better in terms of banning things. I think they need to recreate incentives in terms of creating credibility for the ladder again, because it just doesn't exist. The value and the stock value of European ladder and North American ladder is just in the floor. And I think they need to artificially inflate it again so people get the perception of it being good again, because it just isn't. Make ladder great again. And if you are addicted to the game, take a break. Maybe stop. See if you'll miss it, because the addiction to League of Legends is a real thing. It really is a real thing. And if streamers care so much about this, realize that they have a lot of power and they can definitely, combat this. Voyboy made a video now, made a stance, and I think Voyboy comes from a good position, because he often, promotes the type of teammate that you would want in a team. And I think it's important for us to realize that what we say as well matters, because a lot of players begin to mimic these words, inting, griefing, L9. There's so many L9 fakes. It's disgusting, But at the same time, I understand that the incentive is there for them to not change. But it is up to us to ask our streamers to be better, I guess, or support the ones that do good. Because in the end, people like to complain about Nightblue or Tyler One or wherever. These guys are toxic, but they are getting the numbers. Well, there's no incentive for them to change. That's just the harsh reality of it. So support the streamers that are being nice. I guess that's what you can do. But in the end, it is all business. I think they are smart for doing what they are doing. It is what it is. It's a business, and I don't blame them. Okay, that summarizes the video. Thank you so much for watching. All the best to you, and take care.